Blog Talk Radio.
This is America First, Patriot podcast, defending freedom and liberty is our motto. We put God first and politics second. I'm your Patriot host, Chauncey I. Today, we have a call out for a plea for help from a J6 political prisoner, Chris Worrell. He has stage 4 cancer. He's going to be live in the studio today momentarily, and he's going to talk about his story of an unfair treatment of the justice system and the criminal system and the jail system has been treating him since his incarceration. Also, my sidekick and co-host, Eric Braden, is in the studio. If we have a moment, I'm going to let him speak briefly, and then he is going to bring Chris on to start the show. Go ahead, Eric.
Chauncey Brown, the biggest, baddest man in town. What's going on, brother, man? We got Chris Worrell on the phone right now coming at you from the DC Gulag. We have been standing up and doing everything we can to get Chris, taken care of. He's gone through some hell. He's got a statement he'd like to read out, so I'm going to go ahead and let him do that. And we'll get into asking a couple questions before it cuts us off before the 15 minutes that he has left. Chris, what's going on, man? Go ahead and do your thing, and we'll get into talking about your stuff a little bit more. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So, cruel and unusual punishment. What constitutes cruel and unusual punishment? Is the point of incarceration to protect society from an alleged criminal? Or has it become policy to further persecute by causing suffering beyond moral reasoning upon individuals? These are the questions we, the people, need to be asking each other while utilizing our unlimited and vast resources. What purpose does it serve to allow de facto mistreatment of its prisoners and inmates in jails and prisons across this country? Let us examine the case of Christopher Worrell, a current inmate at the DC Department of Corrections, often referred to as the DC Gulag. It received the nickname DC Gulag in part due to the severe mistreatment of Christopher in 2021. In October of 2021, Senior Judge Roy C. Lambert, to his credit, held the DC DOC Director Quincy Booth and the warden, Wanda Patton, of the D.C. jail in contempt of federal court for the mistreatment of Christopher as it pertained to his pre-existing cancer treatment and a broken hand. The D.C. Gulag was caught altering and omitting Chris's medical records and refused to comply with a court order issued by Senior Federal Judge Lambert. Despite the mistreatment in the D.C. Gulag that nearly killed Christopher Worrell during his 8 months of incarceration, for 3 years prosecutors maintained in court filings and in oral arguments that Mr. Worrell was fabricating and faking his illnesses. In November 21, Judge Lambert released Christopher immediately to the U.S. Marshals after a court hearing due to the fact that he was concerned for Chris's safety in the D.C. Gulag and feared retribution against him from the Gulag staff. Oh, the sad state of affairs, where in jails and prisons across America, victims are punished for speaking out about their mistreatment. Chris went home and he was told by doctors his cancer had accelerated to a stage 3 condition due to the blatant, deliberately indifferent medical mistreatment at the DC Gulag by DC DOC employees and the Unity Healthcare medical staff, where Doctors Mitchell and Crenshaw overwatched the medical treatments of all inmates. In 2022, Chris endured 6 weeks of chemotherapy, of which he suffered severe allergic reactions. Chris also underwent multiple surgeries, removing all of his teeth so doctors could gain access to his jawbone and perform bone grafting to save his badly deteriorating mandible in an attempt to save the remaining bone. This was not faked, but even right up to sentencing, prosecutors representing we the American people continued their claims that Chris was fabricating and faking his illnesses in an attempt to avoid trial, which had to be postponed 3 times while Chris underwent medical treatments. Understandably, Chris developed PTSD symptoms and a genuine fear for his life should he be returned to the negligent care of the jail and prison system in America. In late spring of 2023, Chris was finally well enough to attend trial and was convicted on all charges. No surprise there in a railroad system the D.C. District Court has proven to be. A reasonable person might doubt a conviction for 18 U.S.C. 111B, assault with a dangerous weapon, where for nearly 3 years the FBI, combined with the testimony of 3 witnesses by the prosecution, have all testified they have no idea who Mr. Worrell's target was. Chris also wore a body camera on the day of January 6, 2021, and despite having downloaded nearly 7.5 hours of footage to his laptop, which was confiscated by the FBI, the government claims no such footage exists. A reasonable person could also conclude that it would show who Chris did, or perhaps did not, swear. In August 2023, Chris suffered a major anxiety attack, as he truly feared for his life upon returning to the DC Gulag or her sister jails and prison. Chris felt the sting of torture, mistreatment, and neglect, while also suffering the deprivation of his rights to confront his accuser in court as to his alleged assault. Chris chose to, out of a genuine reasonable fear for his life, to go on the run for a period of 45 days. This wasn't something Chris took pride in. It was rather an act of survival. When Chris was captured at home, he suffered a major anxiety attack and was found unconscious by the FBI. During his PTSD-driven anxiety attack, Chris also took a bottle of pain pills, deciding if he was destined to die slowly and painfully in the custody of our prison system, he would rather take his own life. Chris is very humiliated and embarrassed by this momentary rash decision, and he credits his faith in God with sparing his life. Once again, prosecutors testified that Chris faked this event despite being hospitalized for multiple days while undergoing detoxifying procedures. Since Chris has been in custody for just over 3 months, his medical issues have worsened and have again been ignored. Chris is suffering from open sores and lesions, swollen legs and feet, body pain and cramps, and is also watching his lymphoma grow in his face and head. Chris also found statements in his medical records proving he has not been examined. One of the many errors he found states Chris's tonsils are present and normal. Chris had his tonsils removed 18 years ago. It may not seem like a big deal. However, this shows the symptomatic neglect of Chris and other prisoners. A simple examination or review of Chris's existing medical records would show the truth. Other January 6 inmates have also suffered as well. Broken hands gone untreated, faulty pacemakers installed and then ignored, strokes going untreated, and medications for chronic illnesses being delayed and or denied are just a few examples. Many advocates for Gen 6 inmates have contacted Congressman Byron Donalds to detail the mistreatment of Chris. Representative Byron Donalds has expressed his desire to form a committee to hold congressional hearings and then subpoena January 6 inmates to testify before Congress about the inhumane mistreatment they have endured while in custody at DC DOCs, the DC Gulag, and her sister jails and prisons. Call to action, people. Chris and other J6 inmates are imploring fellow Americans to contact Congress Byron Donalds and others and demand Congress to convene an investigative committee and ask, how much is too much, and what cruel and unusual punishment can Americans tolerate from our jails and prisons? Please contact Mercedes Price Harry. Call or text 202-807-8967 or email mercedes.priceharry@mail.house.gov. No man or woman should have to fear for their lives while in custody of the Department of Corrections or Bureau of Prisons. If it happens to one, it can happen to all. I ask you all to please also go to givesandgo.com/4Patriot support and help Chris raise money to pay his fines and fight his appeal in civil suits against DC. Thank you. And united we stand.
Thank you, Chris. Man, this is heartbreaking every time I go over the story. I just got a question for you. If this situation isn't corrected by the time you get sent out to a BOP, what happens to you, Chris?
Well, I won't be able to speak out anymore because they will throw me in all, take all my privileges away, phone, commentary, and everything. So if I'm doing it from the DC jail here, I think the bigger answer to that is, well, looking at that, they've sentenced me to 10 years with no proof, no victim, no injury, and no witness of assault of officers with pepper spray. While they confiscated my body camera footage and claim it doesn't exist. So I don't know about anybody else, but I've never gone to commit a crime and wore a body camera to do it. And it's just absurd. This political persecution and abuse on top of it that we're facing. All we can rely on is you, the American people, to scream from the hilltops. Call these congressmen. Call that congressman's office. Mercedes is 100% in our corner. She's seen it. I sat down in front of Byron Donalds a couple times. That summer when I sat down in front of him, I told him what was going to happen to me. And from what I hear, his chief has since come to the group and said, hey, we got to do something. We may have doubted what he had to say, but he predicted 100% accurately what was going to happen to him. I fear for myself. I fear for my other brothers. There's another brother in here. He's already flatlined once in one jail. He's got sleep apnea and a severe heart problem and a faulty pacemaker. He's a walking time bomb, and they don't care.
Chauncey, do you have anything you want to ask him real quick before it gets to the last couple minutes? Chauncey, can you hear me?
I think whatever Chris wants to continue to say more, I want to give him as much time as he can. So,
okay, Chris.
It's a very heartbreaking story. So if Chris has more to say, I'd rather yield until he's done.
Okay.
I guess all I can ask is you, the American people, to please fight for us. Help us out. If you can donate money, pass our gifts and goes around, media coverage. There's no reason why like the Gateway Pundit or one of these other news places shouldn't be doing an article on this and interviewing us. I don't know how much longer I'm left in the DC jail. I'll do as much as I can and speak out as much as I can until I am taken away. But after that, I don't know that I can risk it.
Yeah, well, that's the aspect of this that's horrible, is that, once an individual goes to a BOP, they're not even seen as a human being anymore, and that's basically what you knew was going to happen. That's what you stated. So, is there anything else?
You have 1 minute remaining.
Well, you got 1 minute, brother. Just go ahead and say whatever you want to the country, and I'll just let you have it. And we're praying for you, brother, and we're here for you. Go ahead.
All my brothers in here and sisters that are also jailed in this nonsense, we thank you all for all your help and all your efforts. Again, we can only ask you to kick it up a notch, kick down doors, hit these congressmen. There's many of them that have spoken out. There's a new article that came out this morning from Fox News showing the lies they told on Jan 6. They got the evidence and proof that they set this up, that we, the American people, were entrapped that day. There's no excuses anymore. Clay Higgins testified in front of Tucker Carlson and told him, we've got indisputable, huge amounts of evidence proving it.
Thank you for using Global Telly.
All right. That was Chris Worrell, political prisoner sentenced to death by the D.C. courts for being there on January 6th. You heard it from him. He's been medically neglected in about every aspect that you can possibly think, and he knew that going back into this system, they were gonna kill him with it, and that's what happened. That's what's going on. So we're stepping up to the plate, doing whatever we can. Chauncey, what's your 2 cents on this?
Actually, I'm lost for words. Every time I listen to Chris speak, you have to feel what he's going through. It's sad the way our criminal justice system is treating Americans and veterans. This is just a sad story. Anyone who will listen to the story will have empathy. It's just very heartbreaking to listen to his pleas and the courage that Chris has to even speak up for his other brothers. Matt, who is also in the DC Gulag, who, has a pacemaker, who went, flatline, and he has sleep apnea, means that he stops breathing at nighttime. He wakes up choking. I mean, the guy's a time bomb. We're going to have to do something and have a podcast for Matt, too, to share his story, because these stories the American people need to hear about, so everyone has a chance to stand up against the injustice of all these J6ers.
Yeah, man. We've been doing everything we can. Of course, for the people that are listening to the podcast that don't join us for our spaces that we do on Twitter X, we have been contacting Byron Donald's office. We're in communication with that office. Chris is still wanting us to communicate with them and back him up, to let them know that we want this to happen. We want this to be, we want the cover ripped off of this, and we want the world to see what's going on. And one thing about this, it kind of leads us into prison reform in general. This is not just happening to Chris and Matthew Kroll and all the other individuals that we know of that have been abused, but they are being targeted the hardest by this system. They're basically being called terrorists. They're being called insurrectionists by guards. There's the story about Daniel Ball, where he got his teeth knocked in for an innocent situation that he wasn't trying to attack the guards in any kind of way. They ended up beating him and basically knocking 4 of his teeth out, chaining him to a door, and beating him over the head 35 times, horrifically. So these are not isolated incidents. This is, it's abuse in one way or another. It's either physical, it's medical neglect, It's utilizing solitary confinement as a torture device, keeping them locked up in a closet, and all these different aspects that we see are developing as basically weapons to attack these people, these J6ers. But overall in the country, there's no telling how many people are sitting in a cell, being medically neglected in a BOP facility, and they're basically being murdered by the prison because they don't have to do anything, and they don't have to be held accountable. There's no witnesses that will speak out about it. So, these are murders that are happening across this country all the time. A lot of these people, they just don't have advocates, or they don't have family members that are in touch or know what to do, or whatever it is, or their family members have contacted their representative and they just don't care, and that really seems to be the case with a lot of people, a lot of so-called representatives out there. It's fortunate that we have Mercedes Price Harry at Byron Donald's office, doing what she's doing. We're pushing to create, a group of representatives that will step up to the plate and actually address the discrimination that's happening with these J6ers. I would say that it's not an isolated incident. It seems to be ongoing, nonstop, and the only way it's going to stop is if it's exposed. You got to shine light on it to kill the virus, so to speak.
Amen, Eric. And I also want to note to my listeners, in the description, if you look at the highlighted name of Chris Worrell, that link takes to his Give and Go. Whatever help you can send him would be very much appreciative. Also, in the description, my co-host, the General Eric Braden, his link to Twitter. If you want to follow Eric on Twitter, you can click on that link. Also, I will add to the description, if everyone would like to follow us on Free J6 Political Prisoners on X, and also Moms of J6 Prisoners on X. We'd appreciate it, and we can keep you updated weekly on what's going on with these J6ers. They do call out, and we do have them on our spaces, so please consider following us there. You can also follow U.S. First Podcast, which is American First Patriot Podcast, and as well, mine is U.S. First Patriot on X. Please follow us and stay updated. Eric, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to have Chris call in. Very sad story. You and I will continue to have other J6s and other inmates call in and tell their stories so the public can hear what is actually going on directly from these J6s and the injustice that they're facing in all of these prisons. It's not only the jail, like you stated, at the DC correctional facility. It's also the BOP on a federal level, that's privatized prisons, that they're putting our J6ers, because of their terrorist enhancement, they're putting these J6ers with no criminal background, no criminal history, with career criminals and dangerous murderers in the BOP. We have to address that issue as well, because, our J6s are being assaulted, and the medical neglect is real. It's happening on a day-by-day basis, and we need everybody to stand up. We really do. So, General, that's it for today. And then, we'll plan another space or another podcast where we could have some of the other J6ers come on and tell their story. Is there anything else that you would like to say in closing? We're doing what we can. You're there every step of the way, Chauncey, and just appreciate you stepping up to the plate the way you do. We're collecting all these stories and these statements from these J6ers. We're going to try to pick up more. We dealt with Ryan Samsel's issue, his abuse and violence that happened to him. We've got several others that we're collecting the information on. So this is going to develop further. And we'll end up handing off all these statements to these representatives so that they can see exactly what's going on. So, but God bless you for pitching in and doing what you do, Chauncey. Appreciate you, brother, man. Back at you. I love you too. And also, as we're talking about podcasts for these guys, knowing that we have the spaces during the week, maybe you and I can consider making Sundays the space for the J6 to call out when they have downtime, hopefully, and we could do the podcast on Sunday for them. so then during the week everybody has a chance to hear their stories.
Yeah, sounds good, brother. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
We're just going to continue to develop until we win.
Today.
So.
Yes, sir.
Keep on trucking until we win.
Yes, sir. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to American First Patriot Podcast. I'm your Patriot host, Chauncey Brown. My co-host, the General Eric Braden. We just finished listening to a very heartfelt story from J6 political prisoner Chris Worrell. Please, if you have anything in your heart, make a phone call. If you don't have any money to donate to his Gifts and Go, at least make a phone call on his behalf to Byron Donald's office or to the congressman in your district seeking relief, so we don't lose Chris Worrell to death in the prison system, because he's got stage 4 cancer, lymphoma cancer, and he needs help immediately. So I appreciate everyone for listening. Please share this out so others can get involved and hopefully make phone calls so we can try to seek justice for all these J6ers. Thank you all for tuning in. Also, on Monday, American First Patriot Podcast will be hosting Jim Martyr, who is running for Congress. We're going to have him in the studio at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Monday. So please join us. Thank you all for tuning in. Good night, and God bless you all.